So now today we'll be talking about elasticity of demand. That is your responsiveness. We'll be measuring responsiveness with the change in price, the income and price of related goods. So first we need to know what is elasticity. It is a degree of responsiveness, means how does a quantity demand respond with a small change in price, no change in price, or with more change in price. So first we are taking the aspect of this price, then we'll be talking about income, then we'll be talking about price of related goods. Now the thing is, we will be broadly describing the price factor rather than income and price of related commodity. Why? Because these two are just a introductory part in your syllabus, but price we need to do in detail. So now let's start. So taking price elasticity as first, we need to know how does the quantity demand respond with the change in price. So first, price elasticity of demand, which we have written over here. So price elasticity of demand, it relates to the responsiveness of quantity demand of a quantity demanded of a good or a commodity due to change in price. So how does a quantity demanded gets affected with the change in price? That is stated by price elasticity of demand. So the formula, you need to know this: proportionate change in proportionate or percentage. You can write anything. I just wrote proportionate. You can write either percentage change in quantity demanded upon percentage change in price or proportionate change in price. So I have further categorized it. I further broke this formula in this form. That is, proportionate means change in quantity demand upon quantity demand and change in price upon price. So proportionate change in price means change in price divided price. That is how we get proportionate change in price. Quantity demand upon change upon quantity demand, we get proportionate change in quantity demand. So further stabilizing it, we get change in quantity Q. I just made this in form of this alphabets. So see this, and from here we'll get the ultimate formula that will be used later on while solving the sums. So this is the ultimate formula which came from here. Clear till here? So now after this we'll be moving forward towards the various degrees of price elasticity of demand. So first one is perfectly elastic. Now what does perfectly elastic mean? With a no change or small change in price, the quantity demand goes on changing. You can see quantity demand goes on changing. See, various types of quantity demand is going on increasing, but the price remained over here. So with a small change or no change in price, the quantity demand, if it goes on increasing, then that is called perfectly elastic demand. So what is perfectly elastic demand? Price remaining mostly constant, quantity or demand goes on increasing. So you mostly need to state this, that demand is increasing or decreasing. So that is first one, perfectly elastic demand. So over here elasticity is equals to infinite. So perfectly elastic demand means elasticity is elasticity is infinite. It goes on increasing, the demand goes on increasing, which we have just seen over here. Next one is perfectly inelastic demand. Now what is perfectly inelastic demand? Is that, like how perfectly in elastic demand, what did we see? The price remaining constant. In perfectly inelastic, we see quantity demand remaining constant, the price goes on increasing. See, the price goes on increasing and demand is over here, but the price is going on increasing. So this is a thing about perfectly inelastic demand. In perfectly inelastic demand, elasticity is equals to 0 when the quantity demand is constant and price goes on increasing. In that way, we'll be talking about, so before you start anything, the various methods of calculating elasticity, you must be clear about these concepts. After that, let's come to unitary elastic demand. In unitary elastic demand, elasticity is 1. That means with the same change in price, quantity demand also changes in the same way. You can just read it over here. When the proportion change in demand produces the same change in price. So both are same over here. So because of that reason, the diagram of that is this. You can see it is a downward sloping demand curve, which we just studied in the earlier while we stated law of demand. It's the same. See, price, the area of price is equals to area of this quantity demand. See over here, which we can just note it out. See, Q2 Q1 the gap, and P1 P2 the gap is same. So this is unitary elastic, where with the same change in quantity demand, the price also remains. Now let's talk about highly inelastic demand. So highly inelastic, or let's cut this highly, it'll just confuse you. Just let's write just inelastic demand. So in this inelastic demand, with a more change in price, there's a less change in quantity demanded. Over here, there's just the opposite of elastic demand. There's a more change in price will lead to less change in quantity demanded. That is stated by inelastic demand. You can just read it. Relative to inelastic is 1, where the percentage change produced in demand is less than the percentage change in the price of a product. For example, if the price of a product increases by 30%, the demand for the product decreases by only by 10%. So you can see the change. So that's the difference between inelastic and elastic demand. So you need to know the main thing about the elasticity. You need to know these two parts, these two aspects. You should have the basic concepts about it. So again, just go through it. Now further moving, we'll be talking about point elasticity and arc elasticity. So what is point elasticity? Like you can see, I have just marked it. Point elasticity means A and B. These two are certain points. A and B are points. So point elasticity means the measurement of elasticity in this A and in this B. So this is point elasticity. And what is arc elasticity? If we join point A and point B, if we join these 2 points together, what will we find? We will find an arc. So that is arc elasticity. Within that certain range from A to B, it is arc. So that is arc elasticity. When we measure elasticity from certain 2 points, combining 2 points. What is point elasticity? When we just measure the elasticity at certain points like A and B. In that basis, let's now talk about the numericals. So I've just done one numerical. If you want, I can just give you more and more numericals. Just for your concepts, I just given you this numerical. So we'll be putting that formula of elasticity, price elasticity. So let's see, if the price of commodity rises from 5 to 6, so price is increasing. As a result, we know that quantity demand will be falling. Then quantity demand fell from 100 to 50. So let's calculate the elasticity. So let's first find change in price. So price was 5 and now it became 6. So what is the change in price? It is 1. Same way, as a result, quantity demand, it was 150. What was change in quantity demand? It is 50. 100 minus 50. So, and what was the old price? We need to take the old price, that is 5, and old quantity is 100. So now just let's not put this in formula. So 50, that is change in quantity, which we calculate over here. 50 upon change in price. What is the change in price? That is 1, and the price which is over here, that is old price, is 5, which we have just put it over here, and old quantity is 100. This quantity, old quantity, is 100. So we just place it over here, and calculating it, we got 2.5. So what is the elasticity over here? Is it greater than 1? Is it less than 1? Or is it equals to 1? So let's see, what is it? Is it greater than 1? Is it this elastic? Is it elastic demand or is it inelastic demand? Is it greater than 1 or is it less than 1? So let's see, what is it? It is greater than 1. So what can we say? It is elasticity is greater than y because it's 2. So now we'll be doing the first method of calculating price elasticity. So we did the it's the second part. So first was Now percentage method, which we just did the sum as well. Now comes total expenditure method. In this total expenditure method, there's no sums, so you don't need to worry. So over here you'll just see one schedule. I've just drawn it. So this schedule, you just need to understand from here what are the things that is needed over here in case of total expenditure. So total expenditure, the formula is total expenditure is price into quantity demanded. So I've taken the price of certain goods like egg. I've just taken price of egg, that is, it was 8, 7, 6 and 5. Then the quantity demand, we know when the price is decreasing, quantity demand has to increase. We have done a law of demand, so following the law of demand, when the price decreases, quantity demand has to increase. So when the quantity demand increased, it was 4, 6, 7 and 8. So we know according to total expenditure, the formula states price into quantity. So 8 into 4 is 32, 42, that is 7 6 are 42, 6 7 again 42, 5 8 are 40. So till here I think it's clear. We just simply we took the price of egg, we took a roughly quantity demand, and we calculated total expenditure. That was 32, 42, 42 and 40. So now when price falls from 8 to 7, this one, when price fell from 8 to 7, expenditure increased. So over here, in case of total expenditure, we'll be seeing the aspect of price and total expenditure. We won't be seeing demand. So we'll be taking these two aspects, price and total expenditure. So when the price fell from 8 to 7, what happened to total expenditure? It increased. So when price fell from 8 to 7, expenditure increased from 32 to 42. Therefore, elasticity is greater than 1. We'll be showing it, we'll be proving this part. For now, just understand it will be greater than 1. After that, when price is between 7 and 6, these two parts, expenditure remained same, that is from 42 and 42. So at that time, elasticity was equals to 1. Don't worry, this elasticity part I'll be explaining to you while just proving it. So when price is between 6 to 5, when price was between 6 to 5, this two part, the total expenditure decreased. You can see from 42 to 40. So at that time, elasticity was less than 1. So taking these three aspects at first, now let's see. I'm just doing it in a rough way first, just to make the concepts clear. I'll just then do it in a fair way. Now, how did we measure elasticity? Now, how did we measure this elasticity? I told you that I'll be showing you how did I calculate the elasticity, how did I know the elasticity. So when we choose that price is falling, I have chosen that price is falling. You can either make price increasing, and you can just simply put the formula. So total expenditure before price rise. So how much was the total expenditure before the price rise? From 7 to 8. Price is rising from 7 to 8. No. So what was the total expenditure before? It was 42. So I have simply put 42 over here, divided by total expenditure after price rise. Price rise after it was 32. So 42 divided by 32, we'll be getting 1.31. So 1.31, it's greater than 1. Elasticity 1.31 means greater than 1. So from that, this greater than 1 came. Why? Because we saw it was 1.31. So because of that reason, when we put this formula and we saw that elasticity was greater than 1. So because of that reason over here, elasticity came greater than 1. I think it's clear. So when price fell from 7 to 6, this one. Again, let's see total expenditure before price rise. How much was the total expenditure? 42. And what was the expenditure after price rise? It was again 42. So 42 divided by 42 gives you 1. So elasticity is equals to 1, that is unitary elastic. So because of that reason, I wrote equals to 1 over here. Likewise, when price fell from 6 to 5, from here 6 to 5. So what happened was elasticity before price rise was how much? Total expenditure before price rise was 42, and after price rise was 40. So 40 divided by 42 is 0.95. So 0.95 is less than 1. So because of that reason, this less than 1 came. I think it's clear from here how all these concepts came, how this elasticity greater than 1, less than 1 and equals to 1 came, how we place the formula of total elasticity over here. So you need to know everything from here. Just go through it once again if you didn't understand it, and if you still have any doubts, you can just ask. Just clear it before moving further. Now after this, we'll be talking about total expenditure in a wide aspect. How will be the diagram and all those things. So first, let's see total expenditure, or its another name is total outlay. We are again continuing the same thing. So according to this method, elasticity of demand can be measured by considering the change in price and the change in quantity purchased. So over here we can just measure the elasticity by considering the change in price and change in quantity purchased. So total expenditure is price into quantity demanded. We know that. So see, if I tell you when elasticity is greater than 1, elasticity is greater than 1, that is from point A to B, which we just saw in the previous over here. We saw elasticity was greater than 1 when the price was from 8 to 7. So what kind of nature was there over here? What did you see? The nature was inversely related. From 7 to 8 there was inverse relation. Why inverse relation? Because expenditure was increasing, price was decreasing. So there was an inverse nature. So because of that inverse nature, we know from the law of demand, when the price at first, what did we do? When the price increased, when the price was increasing, quantity demand was decreasing. What did we do? There was an inverse nature. That time demand curve sloped downwards like this, if you remember. So when there's an inverse nature, the curve will be sloping downwards. So because of that reason, A and B, because of the inverse relationship, when the elasticity was greater than 1, the total expenditure curve, it fell from A to B. So don't forget to write price, total expenditure. It won't be total quantity demand, it will be total expenditure. So when price increase, when the price decreased in our schedule, total expenditure was increasing. So because of that nature, from A to B, it was greater than 1. So because of that greater than 1, it was falling. So you can just understand from here. I've just given you from B to C. We know when the price was when the price was further decreasing, the total expenditure was constant, if you remember. So at that time, elasticity is equals to 1. We just considered it. So price was decreasing, price decreased. See price decreased from B, from this point to, let's say this point was how much? Elasticity is equals to 1. We just considered it. So price was decreasing, price decreased. See price decreased from B, from this point to, let's say this point was how much? 8 to 6. Let's say price decreased from 8 to 6, but total expenditure remained same. That is shown in point B to C. I just took my rough calculation from here. Just took my rough numbers, and from B to from D to C, it was less than 1. So why less than 1? Less than 1 means when there was a, what kind of relationship was born over here? See, price was decreasing, so was expenditure, total expenditure. From 6 to 5, price decreased, expenditure also decreased. So there was a direct relationship. So in case of direct relationship, the curve slopes upward. So because of that reason, there's an upward slope from D to C. So direct relationship, inverse relationship, and no change over here. So these all things I've just mentioned it over here. You can just understand it. After that, now we'll be doing the geometric method of calculating price elasticity. Now total expenditure proportionate change is over. Percentage method is over. total expenditure method is over. Now we'll be talking about geometric method of calculating price elasticity. So you need to know the formula first. Lower segment of demand curve upon upper segment of demand curve. This formula you need to know. So price elasticity, what is price elasticity? At first you'll be writing this definition. Then geometric method measures price elasticity of demand at different points on demand curve. So this is demand curve, we know that. So this is a demand curve over here. So at various points we'll be calculating elasticity by using this formula. So at point A, so I want you to just consider certain things over here which is not given over here. You can just consider from point A to E, the total measurement here to here, the total measurement was, let's say 2 3 4 5 centimeter. So total measurement was 5 centimeter. So now what can we do is, at point A, how will we calculate this point A then? So calculating this point A, what do we need? We need a formula. So the formula states lower segment of demand curve on upper segment of demand curve. Now what is lower segment? Lower segment means this all things below A. These all things are lower segment. So lower segment, can I say it's 5? Lower segment of demand curve is 5. And what is the upper segment? Is there anything above A? No, nothing. So it's just 0. So 0 divided by anything is infinite. If you remember, it's infinite. So because of that infinity nature, I think you just understood this concept. So I just took 5 centimeter and I just drawn it. So over here, this perfectly elastic thing came. So you can just see over here from AO divided by AE divided by 0, that is infinite. Likewise at point B, lower segment means from here to here, that is BE divided by AB or BA from this. So which one is bigger? This one is bigger or this whole thing is bigger? If this whole thing is 4, this can be just 1. So 4 divided by 1 will give us how much? Elastic, that is 4. So 4 is greater than 1. So because of that reason it is elastic. I think you understood the concept, how I'm just putting it by taking the numerical form. If you didn't understand the alphabetical form which is given over here. So same wise at point C, how much the distance? CE divided by CA. So both the diameter are same, but the distance from here and here is same, so gets cancelled and becomes 1. So at that time it is unitary elastic. So at point D, lower segment is only small, upper segment is big. So lower segment, if lower segment is 1, upper segment is how much? It's 4. So we can just say 1 divided by 4 will give us in point form. Because of that reason it will be less than 1. That's why it's inelastic. Likewise 0 divided by AE, again AE by AE, because we are calculating this point. So 0 divided by anything is 0. So further now comes factor affecting the price elasticity of demand. Now what are the factors that affect the price elasticity of demand? Now before moving towards this, you need to know about normal goods and inferior goods, necessity goods. So just revise it once again. What happens when, in case of normal goods, when price increases, quantity demand also increases in case of normal goods. In case of necessities, what happens? When the price goes on increasing, what happens to your necessities? You have to consume it anyway. So those all things you just need to know. So first let's see the aspect of nature of commodity. So if we talk about necessary goods, the demand will be inelastic. Why the demand will be inelastic? Inelastic means with more change in price, there will be less change in quantity demanded. So if the price goes on increasing of, let's say salt, it was 10 rupees, 20 rupees or 30 rupees. Now it's now 30 rupees. So what will happen to your quantity demanded? It will be uniform. You can't just substitute your commodities. You just can't say that I won't be eating salt anymore. Why? Because that's a necessary commodity. So it's very inelastic. Inelastic means, I think you still remember what is inelastic. That is, with a more change in price, there'll be only a small change in quantity demanded. That is inelastic. I'm not talking about perfectly inelastic. I'm just talking about inelastic. So with more change in price, there will be less change in quantity demanded. For this, you will be willing to pay any price. So, for example, gas cylinders, salt. But in case of luxury goods means big cars like BMW, like Mercedes. What happens in case of luxury? In case of luxury cars, demand will be more elastic. Why it will be more elastic? Because it may drop due to increase in price. So if the price increases, with a, I think you still remember what is elastic, the small change in price, there'll be more change in quantity demanded. So if the price increases, we know quantity demand will decrease. So how much will it decrease? It will decrease more in case of luxury goods. So these things you need to know. That is stated by necessary and the nature of commodity factors. First factor, second factor. So over this, you have to learn any 4 factors. I've mentioned over here around 6 factors. So you need to learn any 4 for 6 marks. Now comes availability of substitute. Availability of substitute means, is there any substitute for the goods like salt? Is there any substitute of salt? No. But is there any substitute of soaps? Yes, which you use daily. For tea, yes, there's a substitute like coffee. So depends upon the substitute of goods. The more substitute there'll be greater elasticity. For example, Coke, instead of Coke you can eat Pepsi. So if the price of Coke goes up, people will be buying Pepsi. So see the elasticity, how it affects the substitute. So if the price of Coke goes up, so with a small change in quantity demanded, there's more change. Sorry, if the more changes with a small change in price, there will be more change in quantity demanded. So price went up of Coke. What happened to quantity demand of Coke? It decreased. How much? On a big basis. Why it decreased on a large aspect? Because there was a substitute like Pepsi. So people shifted their commodity to Pepsi rather than drinking Coke, because Coke, the price had gone up. So people will be buying Pepsi. The demand of Coke will fall. In case of salts, it doesn't have close substitute. It is necessary. Therefore, the demand is elastic. So sorry, over here the demand is inelastic. So please write it over here. It will be inelastic. Just write it over here. It will be inelastic. Now comes time period. So in case of time period, elasticity will be greater over the long run, as a consumer will have more time to adjust. So if a certain goods is over for a long period of time, what will the consumer do? He will say that, okay, I might just purchase it, I might not purchase it. So with the respect of that time period, the demand will be affected. So elasticity will be greater. So it will be more elastic, or it will be elastic. That says that if, let's say for now, a price of let's say Coke is small, let's say 10 rupees, but that Coke is for a long period of time. You'll be seeing that Coke for over 10 years, 20 years as well. So you'll be saying, for now I'll be not buying Coke. When the price will come up, then I'll be buying Coke, you might just say. So because of that reason, it is elastic. More time to adjust their behavior and vice versa on short run. And short run means, let's take woolen clothes. Let's say in winters you need woolen clothes. So at that time it will be inelastic. Why? Because that's your necessity. You have to buy it. That's for a certain time period. Now comes number of uses. If there is more number of uses of certain goods, let's say the greater number of uses of a goods, higher will be the price elasticity of demand. For example, milk can be used to make cheese, butter, curd. So if price rises, let's say price of a milk rises, what will happen, it will only be important for important use, like for serving the children and for sick people. So milk you'll just buy in small quantity then if there is increase in price. So it depends upon number of uses as well, they are saying. Likewise, habits, those goods which has become necessities and habitual, means you now need that product to survive. They have low price elasticity. For example, cigarettes and drugs, means over here it has been inelastic. Why? Because now you are habituated with the increase or decrease in price, your quantity demand won't be affected that much. So because that reason it will be low elastic. Low price elastic means inelastic. So possibility of postponing. So what is possibility of postponing? Possibility of postponing means you are thought of buying a phone on May, but you said that now I don't want that phone, I'll be buying it in December. So possibility of postponing. So if a particular goods can be postponed, it demand will be inelastic. Example, medicine. So if the goods cannot be postponed, it means you need that product at that time only, like the medicine and all, that time it will be inelastic. And vice versa in another cases for the goods which you can postpone and you can say that you will buy it later on. Now comes the price elasticity is just over. Now we'll be talking about income elasticity of demand. So income elasticity of demand, price elasticity was how much the price change the quantity demand. Over here, how much the income will affect the quantity demand, that will be learning over here. Elasticity of demand, price elasticity was how much the price change the quantity demand. Over here, how much the income will affect the quantity demand, that will be learning over here. The formula is the same. See, quantity demand upon income, the price will be replaced by change in income, and income upon quantity. So wait for this, we'll be just doing it. First let's complete this. So you need to understand the three aspects over here, that is positive. In positive there'll be greater than 1, greater than 1, sorry, greater than 0, that is less than 1, and unity. So what happens in less than 1, when the elasticity is less than 1? So positive means quantity demanded increases as income increases. So quantity demand also increases as income increases, they are saying. So when it is less than 1, so quantity demand rises less than its proportionate income. For example, necessities. So when the elasticity is less than 1, that is inelastic. This is inelastic. Inelastic, we knew that earlier also. I told you many times that quantity demand rises less than the income. So if your income is still not, is stagnant, but you have to consume certain goods like necessities, so that is met over here. Greater than 1, so quantity demand rises more than its proportion to income increases. For example, luxuries. So over here what happens is quantity demand rises more than the proportionate income so if let's say there's an increase in income, so what will you do? You will be consuming that commodity. If there's no increase in income, you won't be demanding the product. So over here it will be greater than 1. For example, necessities. And in case of unity, unity means equals to 1. Quantity demand rises same proportion to rise in income. So over here you need to know that income increases in less proportion than the quantity demanded. So if there's a small hike in income also, you will be saying that I'll be demanding that, I'll be demanding that. So that time it will be greater than 1. Now positive aspect is over. Now let's talk about negative aspect. Quantity demand decreases as income increases. So what you need to know, in case of inferior goods, we have discussed this earlier as well. So quantity demand decreases as income increases. For example, inferior goods like how that person shifted his product from maize to rice. I think you know that. If you don't, you can just review the previous video, then you can just see it, what is normal goods, inferior goods, and necessity goods again. Then comes 0. Over here, quantity demand remains unchanged as income increases. Over here, what happens? Quantity demand remains unchanged, means he will be consuming that product. If there is an increase or decrease in that income, he has to consume that product. For example, inexpensive necessities or essential goods, that is salt and all those things. So This is the income part, the various types of income elasticity, which you need to know only this much. Now comes cross elasticity of demand. Now we'll be talking about cross elasticity. So over here there'll be two goods. How does a change in price of one good affects the quantity demand of another good? That we need to know it over here. So just read it. Answer C. Proportional change in quantity demand of X with a change in price of commodity Y. With a small change in price of Y, what is the effect on quantity demand of commodity X? That is stated in case of cross elasticity of demand. This is the formula. First one, QX. Change in QX means change in quantity of that X. What was the change in quantity of that X commodity? Another one is, what was the change in price of that Y commodity? PY means price of old commodity. What is the price? And quantity means what is the old quantity? What is the old price and what was the old quantity? So we also know sums are there. You just need to know this. So basically you'll be seeing two types of cross elasticity over here, that is positive and negative. Positive, always remember there is a substitute means tea and coffee. Always remember, so whenever I say you substitute, it means tea and coffee. Complementary means tea and sugar. So let's see the description. So price increase of a commodity Y. Let's say commodity X and there was commodity Y. There was two products. Y can be, let's say Y is coffee and X is tea. So price increase of commodity Y means price of tea increased. The quantity demand of, so price of a commodity Y means price of coffee it increase. So what will happen to the commodity X, that is tea? The quantity demand of X will be increasing. Why? Because over here the price of coffee has been increased. It's now more than tea. Therefore, people want more of tea now. That's why the quantity demand of tea or X is increasing. So there's a direct relationship. Direct relationship means price of Y increase, quantity demand of X it increase. So both is increasing. So because of that there's a direct relationship. So in case of substitute that happens. In case of negative, so price increase of a commodity Y. So let's say again now complementary tea and sugar. Y is sugar, X is tea. So price increase of commodity Y. Price of sugar is increased. So what will happen to the quantity demand of tea? People will be demanding less of tea. Why? Because the price of sugar has come up. So if the price of sugar has come up, we know that price of tea will also go up. So because of that reason they will be demanding less of X. That happens in case of complementary goods. So that's all for now. We'll be doing it in the next video, supply and law of supply.